S.L.A.M. Music Survival Guide. This one's a little different. We've got a bunch of authors on the cast. We've got Ryah Deines, Bert Edens, Ray Van Horn Jr., and Mark Pruett. Heard in this episode, be creative and do it now, and live the consequences. Or live the experience. We just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Keep listening, hear what it's all about. All right, the robot voice has spoken. All right, so let it be written, so let it be done. What's up, everyone? This is Support Life and Music. It's Jack Mangan here. I've got my work shirt on, so if anything bursts out of my chest, you guys just keep talking and I'll be fine. So yeah, well, let's start from, how about we'll go east to west. First, out of the East Coast, Maryland area, we've got Ray Van Horn Jr., very powerful horror writer and journalist, and the guy's had an incredible career. What's up, Ray?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And then a little further west, we've got Bert Edens, also a high-powered, scary as F horror writer and cool guy and editor and many other things as well. Bert Edens, thanks for joining us.
Howdy, glad to be here.
And then I guess I don't know. I'd have to look in the map, but we'll ignore me. We'll go with Ryah Deines out of Western Canada, who's also AKA R.D. Rivers, author R.D. Rivers. Ryah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And then last but not least, on the West Coast, we've got Mark Pruett of S.L.A.M. He's a good buddy of mine who's done a lot for S.L.A.M, for Support Life and Music, but also the Whiskey Network, new wave of traditional heavy metal, and whatever else. Mark, can you tell me what I'm leaving out?
That's good enough for now. Yeah, thank you.
All right, that was a long round of intros. We're out of time, so thanks everyone.
Talk everyone.
And it's been real. Woo!
Well, you know what? Let's do an icebreaker before we get into the heavy stuff. And when I say heavy, I don't mean we're all going to be crying, but let's. So we'll go the other way around. And Mark, I'm gonna save you for last, since you work here. So just drop some one or two great pieces of music, whether it's an album, hell, it could even be a concert experience. But tell everyone out there, recommend something. So Ryah, I guess we'll start with you. What's some great music that people should all be listening to?
Well, being Canadian and Rush is now having their tour. And we just found out today they're actually going to be hitting our province, because earlier they were just going to do 2 concerts in Ontario, but now they said they're going to hit Edmonton, which is about a 3-hour drive. So you have to promote Rush, anything by Rush.
Yeah.
However, because you just had Kevin J. Anderson on, I guess we should promote Clockwork Angels.
Yes, brilliant album, and yeah, his books, his tie-in book with Neil Peart is brilliant. Yeah, and Rush is kind of the story of 2025, the music story. I guess it's not necessarily the world news headline of 2025, but it's definitely the music headline of 2025 is Rush, or it's one of the big ones. We've had a couple of headlines, but yeah, one of my favorite bands in the world. I'm so glad I saw R40. I need to sell the limousine and the private jet to catch Rush on this tour, but I hope to. I'm trying to do it. All right, well, no, great answer. All right, Bert, I guess we've given you a little bit of time to think about it. What would you recommend off just, shooting from the hip?
Probably go with another Canadian band I like, and that's the Dead South. I love their style. It's just bluesy, folksy, a little bit of everything, funny lyrics. They're a little bit different, but I like them. And radically different from that, let's go with The Who, as in the Mongolian version, not the British version. Something about Mongolian throat singing that it's just different, but I love it. Good power music.
Yeah,
their videos are great too.
Which ones?
Their music videos?
For who? The Who or Dead South?
Yeah, for The Who.
Yeah, they are very intense.
Yep.
The cover that they did of the Metallica song.
Oh, yes, it was really good.
Yeah, caught them opening for Iron Maiden this past year.
Yeah. I was supposed to see him with Five Finger Death Punch and Megadeth. here in town. But at the last minute, the Who had to cancel that show. Apparently, they had some difficulties at the hotel. Anyway, so did not get to see them, and that was the one band I wanted to see. Not that Dave and Megadeth were bad, but you know.
All right, good stuff. All right, and Ray, I guess wrap it up here with give us some recommendations.
Well, and keeping in the key of Canadian, I'm wearing Koer Adamik, which is actually Blackie of Voivod. That's his side project. I guess you could say electro prog and all kind of like bass prog, of course. And with him and his girlfriend Monica. I mean, I don't know if they're married yet, but I highly recommend that. I mean, that's just wild stuff. Voivod people will connect with, but it's also spacey and trippier than what you're used to. The two albums I can't get out of my life right now is the new Deftones album, Private Music. I mean, it's just a whole nother level of what you got. I mean, you got the bombast, but it's also just so beautifully textured. And Chino, I never heard him sing so gracefully in my life. So yeah, I cannot stop listening to that. And then finally, I would also say the new Nine Inch Nails soundtrack for Tron Ares. I haven't seen the movie, but I've had the soundtrack for 2 months, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's not Daft Punk. I mean, Daft Punk gave us a true legacy album for that movie, but what Nine Inch Nails did is a little bit more subdued. It's moody. It's still pumping. It's its own animal, but it's magnificent. And what really got me hyped looking at the film reviews is every single one praised Nine Inch Nails. They may not have liked the movie, but they were all about the music.
All right. I'm the music geek in me just wants to just go off, but that's I want to stay on topic too. But Mark, I mean, I don't want to leave you out. So if you got anything you want to jump in on this topic before we get into like the question, the Q&A part.
Two bands. Band out of Manchester, UK, called Wailing Banshee, a female-fronted new wave of traditional heavy metal band. Absolutely fantastic record that they have out right now. Please go and check that out. And then I'd like to just because I just saw them, I saw them twice in a couple of weeks. A shout out to an original traditional heavy metal band, Armored Saint. It's awesome to get connected again to just actually how great their music is. Seeing they opened for Michael Schenker, so that was the first concert we saw, and then we saw them do the last headline show of their little tour that they did, and wow, just absolutely an unbelievable live performance of not two totally different sets of music. So it was great.
Wow. Yeah, John Bush is one of the greats. Although Mark, I think you were supposed to pick a Canadian band. That's just following the trend, I think.
I can't compete with Rush. So
Devin Townsend is, probably my second favorite Canadian musician. But
Okay.
again, I'm
here's a
geeky.
Canadian band, Big Sugar. Listen to Big Sugar.
Big Sugar is good. I
Yeah.
like Big Sugar.
Yeah, well, Canadian, that's a whole episode in itself. There's so many great, like I said, as Ray just said, Kevin J. Anderson on, and Michael Sadler from Saga, another great Canadian band.
Saga.
And
Yeah.
I have to appreciate the Voivod call out because Killing Technology is one of those formative albums in my youth.
Same here. First contact with that, I sat there with my jaw on the floor. I was just literally like had the album cover in my lap, like I think all of us can relate. When you have the vinyl in there, in your lap, holding on to it, spinning it, looking at it, practically making out with it, and then the music going. It blew me away, and it's still just one of those first contact albums that will always stick with me.
Probably 3 weeks ago, I listened to that album cover to cover, just on principle alone.
Yeah,
because you have good taste.
Thank you.
I
I appreciate that.
I must get to the topics and not geek out about Voivod because what a great topic Voivod is. But yeah, great band. All right. So this is seriously. So let's and Mark, I want you to jump in with some questions too. But I'm gonna ask my first one. Obviously we're all creative. Obviously there's a lot of creative overlap. We all love music. We all love writing. Talk to us about. And I'm gonna there's a toss up. Anyone can take it. Talk to us about the kind of the crossovers, the parallels of the creativity and the frustrations and the stresses and the difficulties between writers and musicians.
Well, one of the big things, especially when you're just starting out, and it doesn't matter if you're a writer or musician, you put yourself into your book quite a lot, especially if it's your first one. And you have to be ready for, you put everything into this, you put it out in the world, and then the world will go, eh. And you have to be ready mentally for that. Because for every Stephen King, for every Rush, there's maybe 10 that will be really lucky if they can make a living wage. And for each one of those 10, there's thousands that are lucky if they sell a dozen books, you know. And if you're not ready for that, and that's the same with albums, for every Rush, there's 10 that make a living wage. And for every one of those, there's thousands that might sell 10 albums or 10 songs or whatever. And if you're not ready for that yourself, because everyone goes out going, oh, I'm going to be the next big thing. And then when you're not, you have to be ready mentally for that, or you will fall, you will crash. So that's the biggest crossover between the two.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to take the football from on there and run with it, because I think that's an excellent point. That's definitely one of the things that you have to be ready for in this industry, or in any creative industry.
There's a lot of
100%.
overlap into other creative industries. Sorry, I apologize.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have a joke at Whiskey Network on the inside. Do you know how to make $1 million in the whiskey industry? You start with 2. So I have a question sort of on that. And it seems like so much creativity today is very much in your face. You know, I think if you compare something like Stephen King movies that were perhaps a little more subtle, you know, sometimes there were some shocking images and things like that, but then you look at something in the same vein, not in the same vein of horror, but in the same city, you know, something like a Terrifier. These are 2 different things, but they use 2 different vehicles to get to things. So in this day and age, with everything so much in your face, how are you adapting to that, to your writing, whether it's the horror genre or whether it's something else?
I took the last question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna be like the teacher. If no one's gonna answer, I'm gonna start calling on people.
Well, I would personally say that I agree with what you're saying. You just have to really stay on top of what's happening. You have to read everybody that you can, watch everything that you can, make sure you're not overlapping with other people. You may have this grand idea that you feel like that, you know, look, as soon as I put it out there, you know, I'm going to be looked at as a trailblazer. Well, you may not, or you may. I would just say do your homework out there, see what other people are doing, get acclimated to their styles, network, just try to drop people some, you know, lines here and there. But my biggest thing I've learned, especially in the last 6 months, is as soon as you send these stories out, get on another project as fast as possible. I'm not trying to say burn yourself out, but a lot of times the anticipation of hoping that you're going to get an acceptance or at least some sort of response so that you know that you could submit it elsewhere. I'm not the kind of person that I like to submit multiple submissions to a lot of places. You just never know when you hit. And it could look unprofessional if like somebody else came at you with like a better deal, or I was really looking forward to it, but then all of a sudden, yeah, I can't give it to you. I'm sure it happens frequently, but um, I think I just get onto another project as fast as I can, get motivated, and just forget about it. I keep a log of all the stories and where I've submitted so I can keep track of all that. But my mind space has to shift into something completely different just so that I stay out of that overly anticipation kind of mode or over eager kind of thing, and that way you're not bothering editors or anything like that, because I mean they're getting just I'm looking at what some of the editors are reporting, the numbers that they're getting in submissions now. I don't envy them for nothing on that, man.
Well, when I worked in the publishing industry, we would always tell our authors the best way to sell your previous book is put out your next book.
Right. And that's solid. Yeah.
And Bert, I don't know if you want, I don't want to, I had a question, but I want to make sure you had an opportunity if you wanted to jump in and answer anything we've kind of talked about, like Mark's question about staying, you know, kind of staying relevant, staying current.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like what Ray was saying, as far as try to keep something always going, and especially if you've got your hand in different tills, because like I said, I do writing, editing, formatting, and then of course there's quote unquote the job that pays the bills, and so that is obviously the priority. So, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy. I try to keep things, because I do different things, that I'll do a writing project and then I'll schedule, so I have an editing project and then a formatting project, because I feel like it doesn't get as stale that way. I don't feel like it's churn, 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 churn. And then also when I'm editing and working on other people's stuff, I find that helps spark some creativity. There was a lot of good stories that were submitted for the 2 anthologies that I'm putting together, one out, one coming out. And it was really nice to see the totally creative way that somebody approached something, and we see that a lot, like especially in Hollywood. There, you don't see a lot of chances being taken. You see a lot of remakes being taken and being made. It's like, oh, great, another War of the Worlds. Great, it's a great story, but how many times can you tell that story? And we see when you watch, and it's the same thing with music for that matter, how many of us know that garage band that has never released an album that is better than half the people that have contracts, and it's kind of the same thing with writing. Some people out there are just really killer writers, but maybe they just got a few short stories, or maybe they just haven't found that publisher that'll say, yeah, I'll take a chance on your novel. But yeah, that's how I try to keep things fresh, is I try to keep doing different things. So it's not just a project, but it's a different kind of project.
All right. Yeah, no, it's great answers, everyone. And yeah, thanks. And I'll just say it. Like, there's definitely a lot of parallels between, for musicians and for writers who are struggling to make it. So let me kind of ask. These are 2 notoriously difficult and carnivorous industries. Publishing and the music industry are 2. They have such terrible reputations. A lot of the publishing industry's terrible reputation comes from someone as mean as Ryah over there. Someone who's just as vicious and bloodthirsty as Ryah over there. But no, seriously, what would you recommend? I mean, again, Ryah's been on both sides of it in publishing, and I mean, I guess all of us have, actually. But what are your recommendations across the board? What do you need to watch out for? What are the hazards, the dangers, the things you need to watch out for when you're wading into these waters? Ray, you're on my screen, so I'll ask you.
Okay.
Well, the big thing you have to do, like, there's actually a website, I don't know if it still exists, called Editors and Predators.
Yeah.
Because you will get some editors, and I'm not going to name names, but you will sign a contract and you will never see a penny of royalties from them. Even though, even if you don't, like, where I worked, we didn't give advances, but we gave higher than average royalties. But I do know of another company that didn't give advances, and they were notorious for fudging it, so you didn't get royalties. So you do have to do your homework when you're sending stuff in. And I'm sure it's same with music. If you're sending it especially to a smaller press or, a smaller music publisher, you do have to make sure you do your homework to make sure you're getting someone who is reputable, who will nurture you, and who won't just put something out and that's the last you hear of it. That's one of the things you have to watch for.
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's well said. Yeah, I mean, labels. I mean, of course, in the music world, and actually in publishing as well, there's a lot more people just going the indie route, saying, I've had enough of the industry shenanigans and getting screwed over and handing over my rights. And my book is a huge success, but I still only made $1,000 last year because a terrible contract. I mean, that happens in music as well. That's, I think, a lot of why what we've seen.
we would also get people who would hand over their book and just walk away thinking the publisher does everything, and you still have to self-promote. We had to return rights. We've published a book and then the author would do nothing, expecting royalties to roll in, especially when you're a first-time author or you're working with a small press. You still have to go out and hustle yourself. You can't expect, and then when you're with the big presses, they still expect you to go hustle, maybe attend conventions, you know, do things like this. And if you don't, if you hand in your stuff thinking it's good enough that it will sell by itself, you're going to fall.
Yeah. No, that's another good point. Are any other kind of hazards or even horror stories anybody has that they want to share about bad run-ins? I mean, I'm not asking you to name names, but any kind of things to watch out for as you're kind of waiting out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I have any real horror stories at this time. Although when I was a music journalist, I saw 1,000 horror stories, especially that many bands that I interviewed. I hate to say that I was people were really into their music, but they were so underground that everybody here can relate to the band that comes into town and they are just getting Doritos and maybe a 6-pack of beer amongst the entire band to share. And that's pretty much their take. They got to get their merch sales to make it to the next
Yeah.
town. And I saw that so much. And there were some bands that came into town over and over that I became friends with. I would bring them stuff just to help them get to the next town or whatever. Water, beer, a little extra food, that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you're an opening band and the headliner is just kicking your ass all in merch, how do you fight that? So I saw
Yeah.
so many bands burn out that really deserved a chance. It broke my heart. But flipping back, I just got one piece of advice, at least from the publishing end, and it's something that my wife learned and passed on to me because she's also a writer. Make sure that your book publisher offers returns. Because most of these people that you're trying to get out to your retailers, if they don't offer returns, they're not going to carry you. They're not going to order your stuff at all. And I've found that out from one publisher we've dealt with, but my current publisher does offer returns. The other one does not. You can see which one the stores are willing to deal with more. So I'll leave it at that. Make sure that your publisher offers returns.
All right. All right, good advice. Hey, Mark, I mean, of course, everybody jump in when, if you got a comment or anything you wanted to say. But Mark, I'll throw it over to you. I don't know if you had another question you wanted to ask.
I have tons of comments. I just wanted to make sure that I cut Ray off carnivorously a little bit earlier.
It's all good, man.
I wanted to make sure that he got his comment in from that perspective.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good. I'm glad. So the comment that I have, and I come at this from a different perspective because I'm publishing at a little bit of a different level. And what's really cool about music is there is a very vibrant underground in heavy metal right now across the board, many different genres, but the new wave of traditional heavy metal is definitely something. It's especially sort of close to my heart, but there are a ton of bands that are out there that are working hard, and they're doing things in the underground, and they're doing a lot of things free or it's costing them to move things through, and that really sort of gets me back to kind of my roots. I'm not a book writer, but I'm a published author when it comes to interviews, stories, or reviews and things like that. And there's no money. There's no money in this, right? It's a completely different thing. So it's much the same thing. There are all these writers that could be great or are great, but they're not making any money and they're putting all of this stuff out for free. And there's all these media vehicles out there also that are kind of bumping and scraping by. So I guess my question is, for all of you, how did you cut your teeth in the underground, and what was the moment where you sort of crossed over to where you began to get momentum and you began to make money? Ray, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, thanks. When it comes to music, the way I broke in was in the late 90s and the early 2000s. I wanted to do a book on metal that, since you had the quote new metal that was coming along, I wanted to get the perspectives from all the bands that we grew up with from the 80s and see who I could get. I just cold contacted everybody, and you'd be amazed who all spoke to me. I had Twisted Sister, I had Michael Schenker, we
Yep.
brought him up earlier, Joe Lynn Turner, and it just was something that snowballed, and I got Anton Fig, and all of these people that were helping me out were passing my name along. So next thing you know, I end up going to Pit Riff because someone said, I'm going to send you a care package of CDs. Would you be open to reviewing? I said, oh, okay, great. This was just literally handed to me. So when I started with Pit Riff, the first interview they gave me was Jack Russell, like a couple weeks after the Rhode Island fire. And so that was a good way to cut your teeth. And my whole philosophy has never been to be a yellow journalist in any way, shape, or form. I don't like blindsiding artists. I will always give them an out. If I hear something that I feel may hang them in the public, I will always ask, "Are you going to stand? Do you stand on that?" Because I don't want to, put them in the crosshairs. So that was like my first professional interview after all these other interviews that I did on myself. And it worked out really great. I mean, Jack, you could hear he was very, very shaken up. I did not go there with Rhode Island. I stuck to talking about the album and a couple of the early Great White albums. And he just, like, toward the end, he says, "Ray, I really appreciate you not talking about Rhode Island, but I do have something I want to say." So I opened the floor to him, and he took it himself. And then after that, apparently, he got back to the press agent at the time that I didn't try to blindside him with that. And I also said, "Well, here's the transcript. And if you and Jack sign off on this, we'll roll with it." So from there, I got that kind of reputation. It just, all of a sudden, I just stacked. I was at one point writing for 13 magazines and websites simultaneously, had 3 columns, and it was a wonderful time. It really was. And I'm trying to take that same philosophy with my horror writing. A lot of networking. I'm going to conventions, meeting people, trying to get some of my stories into anthologies, and I'm just shoving it all out there right now. So it's just a lot of networking is so key, and your network says everything about you.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
great
man.
stuff. I love the question, Mark. No, Mark, comma. I love the question. But Bert, I mean, you have a really strong following in this world. I mean, I'm not trying to shine a spotlight or embarrass you, but you really do. And so I think, you can probably take Mark's question to the next level. I love the question. How'd you cut your teeth in the underground in the
Yeah, it's a
horror
great
writing
question.
scene?
Yeah, I'm still doing it, I guess, really. I kind of, from the beginning, decided to self-publish, and that's part of it is creative control. Part of it is that I didn't have to worry about waiting for that contract. And yes, it means a whole lot of extra work, but kind of took that route. And there's still dues to pay, look at Amazon and have 0 sales for the month, it's humbling for sure. But as far as kind of making your way, kind of like what Ray was talking about, the only thing I really try to do as an editor, formatter, and then also as a writer when I'm doing something for somebody is be square with them and make promises, keep promises. If I say somebody, "Hey, we're going to do this, and this is when we're going to do it, and this is when I'm going to have that done for you," I'll have it done for you by that time. And I think that those little promises kept can make a big difference in the long run. Like I said, I'm still making it out there, and I got a con to go to this weekend, actually a horror con here in Arkansas, and then a local craft fair the next weekend. But it's getting a table, getting out there, and people going, "Oh, horror, okay, cool, let's check that out." You never know. But kind of like the whole thing with got to pay the dues. I don't. Hold on a second. I got noisy corgis. Hold on a second.
Guest appearance from the corgis.
Dogs don't agree with paying your dues.
No, they don't. Well, it's my adult kiddo is standing still, and so she's barking at him because she thinks he wants to play. So, but anyway, yeah, I kind of lost that track a little bit. But yeah, I think that's a lot of it is. Like I said, I still feel like I'm finding my way through it, but I think that's a lot of it is you got to get out there, you got to network, and no matter what your role is, if you make a promise, keep it.
Absolutely.
Because as Ray was saying, your word is that's it. That's how I was raised anyway, and I carry it into this too. If I tell somebody I'm going to have your editing done by this day, then come hell or high water, it's done by that day.
Nice.
If I could just add to that, I would say do the solid. I preach that to everybody. Do the solid.
Yeah. I had somebody that I did some formatting for, and I missed something on the acknowledgments that as an editor I should have caught. And he's like, "Hey, I'll pay you to fix that." I said, "Oh, hell no." That is my mistake. I missed it. I fixed it. Send him a new EPUB, send him a new PDF. That's my bad. That's no reason he should pay me extra for that. So I agree with that. Absolutely. Do a solid.
I love that.
Yeah, great. That resounds with some conversations Ray and I've had recently. So Ray, again, not to put you on the spot, I don't know if you had a response to Mark's question about cutting your teeth through the underground.
I mean, I've been in the convention circuit for 40 years. So, you know, I even was chairman one year of the local science fiction fantasy convention. And I was on the startup committee when we started a new one. I was part of that original committee. So, you know, I've been in the convention circuit forever. So, you know, it sort of goes with what Bert was saying. He was doing the conventions as well and whatnot. So, yeah, I can do that. And to jump off of something Bert was saying about the editing, the other thing, and it helps with music too, is you do have to try to put out something polished. You could put together your manuscript or your music, and if you just put it into Amazon as is,
Yeah,
it's not going to sell as well if it doesn't look nice too. And same with music. You can put out this really rough demo, but if you polish it more, people will be more likely to look at it or listen to it.
Yeah, to add on to that real quick, I've had somebody that I finished editing and formatting their novel earlier this year. And through that process, he realized that the editor he had for his first 3 novels didn't do a damn thing for him. They basically did a quick scan for typos, and that was it. You know, no word efficiency, no cleaning up, no why do we have the word emerge 75 times in this manuscript, things like that. Those things that if you really pay attention to it and do a deep dive for developmental edit, you should do that. But again, being square and saying this needs to be clean made him realize he didn't have that the first time. And that's a shame.
I also mean by look too. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, I
absolutely.
did that with Jack's book too. Jack's got a book coming out soon, and I went, well, why is this here when it was over there earlier? You know, which is a similar idea. But yeah, my job when I was working for the publishing company was to make the books look pretty. You know, not just here it is all run together as one giant document. You have to make it so people will want to look at it too.
Yeah, that story really quickly. So, well, I'll tell it really, really quickly. I guess this is kind of an outing a little bit, but yeah. So I'm putting out Dread
Sorry.
Spherical. No. I'm happy to announce it. So, I know this isn't. We'll get back to music. I promise. If you're a regular viewer, this is but it is all there are all parallels. Anyway, my novel Dread Spherical is coming out. We're recording this at the end of 2025, so it will come out soon, within the next few months. So maybe early 2026, maybe late 2025. It is not a sequel, but it is connected. But it's a standalone novel. But yeah, I became sort of known in the podcast world and sort of known for spherical toming. So yes, you hear that word in there. But yeah, Ray was one of my. She did it at an edit and an early read, and she was kind of like, how did this character end up with the shuriken when the shuriken was over there? And it's like, oh my gosh, you just saved the book.
Absolutely.
You saved the book. Because yeah, I went in and it was a simple fix. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things. I remember one time years ago writing a short story and a buddy was like, hey, how come he drove away in a BMW and showed up in a Mercedes? What happened there? I was like, oh, boxy German car.
Continuity.
That's why I would call it beta save.
Hello, everybody out there. This is Rich Catino over at Metal Asylum on Facebook, and I write for Brave Words in the Metal Hall of Fame, and also the new wave of traditional heavy metal at Sea of Tranquility, where we talk about all the great new music that's out there from, you know, your heavy metal bands from the new generation. Go over to S.L.A.M, Support Life and Music, and my friend Jack Mangan, who provides all sorts of resources and information and positive discussions to help you and guide you as you go through this crazy and hectic music industry. They have great discussions and links and services to help everybody stay on track and stay positive. Cheers.
Well, all right. Let me ask a couple more. I have three more questions. I don't want to keep you guys here all day, but and I also want to make sure Mark has a chance. And I want to make sure everybody has a chance. One of my questions, by the way, is promote your stuff. So that one's going to be easy. But let me ask this from as a music consumer and as a writer who you know, is fearful about this kind of thing in our industry, in the writing industry, I should say. What is your experience with music streaming? Are you a consumer? Are you vehemently opposed? What are your thoughts on music streaming? That's a
My
broad
husband
question.
uses Spotify a lot. I've used the Amazon one occasionally. I know John uses Spotify. He has a love-hate with it relationship to it. I mean, obviously there's a lot of issues from the artist side, and you can say that about publishing. From the artist side, Amazon is a female dog to work with. But when you're listening to it, or
Please
when you're
watch your language.
Nice cleanup.
Yeah, please watch your language here. No, you can say bitch. All right, go, but yeah, go on, please.
Do
Don't let me
you
interrupt.
want me to voice over obscenities for you?
you can say my own fucking insanities.
Okay,
There
just
you
making
go.
sure.
Now
Yes.
we're talking.
Now we've
We
been
could just
able
like
to.
kind of death clock it.
Yeah.
But from a consumer side, Amazon and Spotify are actually good. But like I said, from the production side, they're not friendly, both in royalties. Amazon has this weird royalty structure that you have to work around for your pricing, especially ebooks. Well, they've just changed the print book pricing thing just recently too. So you have to work. So I had to actually increase the price of my book so I would get more than 50 cents. And Spotify does the same thing with artists. So yes, so from an artist side, working with behind the scenes is a pain. So no artist likes working with Spotify or Amazon and whatnot, but all consumers like working with it. So they have to find a way to meet in the middle, which is easier said than done.
That's really well said. All right, Bert or Ray, you want to pick that up from there? Or
Yeah,
Mark?
I would go like I'm such a dinosaur, man. I love my hard copy, and I got very spoiled when I was in the industry. My first wife was a good sport about it, but she would cringe just about every day. My mailbox would be stuffed with hard copy promos, CDs, videos, vinyl, books. She would just kind of like lay it on as soon as I walk in the door, and she kept her mouth shut. But at one point, I had so much media from, and you're so proud of what you're doing that you're holding on to everything you got. I had a literal labyrinth in my basement. That's where I would do my reviews. My stereo was set up. I was surrounded by a long maze of shelves that had all of my media that I got from the industry. Plus, I was still buying. I love horror, but I love music on a same equilibrium. So, and especially when you get pigeonholed into one genre, you really kind of start to branch out to other stuff. And if you're not, then you're a fool because you really want to make your writing more textured by knowing other genres. So I was doing that constantly, and I just got so spoiled once they transitioned. You know, there would be all the streaming and downloads and stuff. It just felt so cold and impersonal to me. I got to the point when I was with Blabbermouth, I got all these downloads, and they gave me all the work I could handle with it, which I needed. And God bless Blabbermouth. I've said it in public 1,000 times over. They saved my ass when I needed the money. But I would get all of these downloads and just queue them up all weekend long with my headphones on and give those albums about 3 listens per through the weekend because I was never a one and done kind of reviewer. I really wanted to be as fair as I could. But it was very difficult to look at real small compressed liner notes and the press packets that were smushed and compressed as opposed to what you would get sent to you. And even having the packaging yourself. I mean, again, I brought up earlier about just having the album in your lap when we were teenagers, especially like Iron Maiden Power Slave. To me, that is the holy grail of heavy metal. That is the greatest album of the entire genre. For the album cover, for the music, that is the most metal experience of my life, and it still is. But you don't get that if you're going to get that in a download. You know, you can see the artwork, but it's like this tiny little square. It's nothing like having that thing spread out in front of you. You know, so in that respect, I'm still trying to hold on and buying stuff, much to the chagrin of my current wife. What I buy more is movie soundtracks and scores because that's what I write to all the time. I'm writing to action scores and horror scores, and that's where I'm getting most of my hard copy. Unless there's just an album I have to have, like when the new Megadeth comes out, damn right I'm buying that sucker. So because that's got to be the epic finish that I think it's going to be. But it's, you know, the streaming is just not the same. My wife would prefer that I streamed everything, but and that's more just for, you know, space. You know, we're getting ready to move into a new house, and I've moved 5 times since my Labyrinth days, and I ended up giving half of my promos to friends because I didn't want to just lose them, and I wanted to pass them on and let other people enjoy them. And it was just a horrible process, cutting it down, cutting it down, cutting it down. I missed that dimension of it, but I also recognize you got to move forward. You have to, or, you know, my current wife says, evolve or evaporate. There you go.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I also just say really quickly before Bert, pardon me for jumping in
It's
where
okay.
you're, you know, for your turn, but what you just said, Ray, that kind of applies to the MP3 revolution, which is
Yeah,
also history, but you know, what you said, it applies to that as well as streaming. So
it
yeah.
does. Yep.
Sorry, Bert, I don't know if you had to,
Yeah,
or,
no, a little bit. First of all, shout out to Power Slave.
oh yeah.
First concert was seeing Iron Maiden and Wasp in Houston. A hell of a
Nice.
show. Anybody but Maiden and Blackie and the boys would have blown them off the stage. They were so polished for that early, you know, so good,
Yeah.
so over the top. But yeah, Jack had just mentioned MP3s, and that's kind of like Ray was saying with the streams. You know, it's hard because as a consumer, it's handy to say, man, I just want to listen to the new Megadeth album or whatever, you know, if I don't have it. And it's easy to stream that on whatever medium that would be, whether it be Amazon Music, Spotify, Pandora, whatever. But pretty much all the things I've had a lot of CDs over the years, probably not as many as Ray, but most of those I have ripped to MP3. And so I still will fire up Media Monkey and I've got thousands and thousands of MP3s, and it'll just be like, you know, hey, I just want to listen to this or that, and, you know, top 5, you know, 5-star songs or whatever. And then when it's like, man, I need to listen to, you know, the new, I don't know, Taylor Swift, who cares? Anyway, the new album that I don't have on
My
MP3.
husband's a huge Swiftie, so
Anyway, but you know, I've got to find some way to listen to that. I want to listen to it. But you know, somewhere along the way, kind of like Ray, I had to make a decision, and that decision was to go ahead and rip those CDs, make sure I have the MP3s and they're out on the cloud so I can get to them when I need to, pass those along so I can have more room for books. So, but yeah, it's the same thing. You know, I've still got a few 8-tracks floating around with no way to play them.
Cool.
Nice.
But hey,
Jeez.
Yeah.
If I
All
could
right.
add to that just 1 second, this is my stepping into the current revolution. There's 3,000 albums on my little thumb drive
yeah.
here,
nice.
so that's what I had to do to make a compromise with my current wife. So
We live in the future, really. Also, I got a quick story, Mark, so I'm gonna, pardon me. And I know I'm looking at the clock, and I don't want to tie up everyone's day. Actually, screw
That
it.
thing
Everybody,
could burst out of your chest at any minute, Jack.
I know exactly, right. Right. Singing "Hell on My Baby." So the I remember that because I worked in at college age. I worked in a record store. I remember often people would come in and just talk to me about music, and then you know, they'd say, "You got to hear this song." I'd be like, I hope I hear it someday. I remember a guy coming in and saying, "Hey, you ever heard of Mandrill?" I was like, "Nope." He said, "Oh, you'd love it." It's like, "All right, I hope." He's like, "They never get played in the radio." It's like, "All right, I guess I hope I hear it some." Because I'm not gonna go spend $20 on a CD, you know,
Yeah.
just in because some guys. But now somebody said, "Oh, you'd love Mandrill." Okay, I'll fire him up on Spotify and check him out.
Yep.
So that is one thing I cannot deny about the value of streaming. But however, I think you guys have all said it really well. So I just wanted to throw that bit in. But Mark, you can tell me to shut the fuck up. You know, you know me well enough.
Jack, I love you. I would never say that to you. So I'm gonna go meta. So first thing is I'm a veteran of the Winamp days, and I digitized all my CDs, and I had a pirate radio station on Winamp. So shoutcast for the win. I miss those days.
Yep.
And also I want to shout out to the lost art of liner notes. Ray, going back to Great White, Once Bitten, some of the best liner notes I can always remember. I reference the liner notes to those songs very often because that was a great example.
Wonderful,
I'll,
wonderful.
I'll try and make my point very brief, but I'm going to take the meta here. The failure of streaming can be directly tied to over-reliance on shareholder capitalism and not stakeholder capitalism. And I'm a capitalist, make no mistake. I'm not in favor of anything else here, and I'm not going to go on a rant from that perspective. Shareholder capitalism puts all of the benefit to the shareholders. Stakeholder capitalism benefits both shareholders and the stakeholders being the people who write the technology, the people who market the technology, but also the artists that are involved. We don't need CEOs to make, what's the difference between the CEO of Spotify making $100 million versus $600 million? Well, that's a yacht that's 30 foot longer than the other, right? Do we really need that? And is that shareholder, stakeholder value that can be put back to the artists, where the artists are also being compensated more than fairly for the things that they're doing and for the things that they're putting out there? And, you know, I think that that's the biggest difference. Go do yourself a favor and go Google CEO pay versus worker pay. And there's a graph that shows up, and CEO pay looks like a hockey stick, and worker pay is a dead flat line. And I
That's a
think
more
that's
recent thing, actually. Up until about the 1960s,
correct.
it
Correct.
was,
Yeah, the last, we'll call it 50 years, that's been a relatively recent thing. And if you trace it back to, you know, a lot of different things, that's when we got started down the road of, you know, being only concerned about shareholder value and not stakeholder value. I think that's how we fix a lot of things that are happening. But if you're looking at the world of streaming, that's one of the biggest problems and what's killing it.
Yeah, yeah, that's well said. And I'll say, by the way, I do want to make it clear to everyone, including Spotify, if you're watching, this is not, the point of this isn't fuck Spotify. The point of this is what, you know, what can, you know, what's everyone's experience with it, and, you know, what things are working, what things are not working. So I think all those are really valid points. And I will also, one more point, and then I will truly shut the fuck up, is that along with what Mark said, I think that hockey stick you're talking about, I think that if you look at a timeline, that mirrors artists' relationships to getting paid, because I think you had in the 80s, you know, had a marginally successful song, you got a lot of money coming in from sales and play and all that, and then got to the point in the early 2000s where the biggest new bands were just getting paid nothing. They were still getting paid nothing. So that's where the hockey stick was still going up for behind the scenes. So that these are all, I think these things go in parallel.
And the hockey stick doesn't take into account also the amount of shareholder value that's been created and given back in that time. But look at where we were 15 years ago, just in terms of where the stock market was to where the stock market is today. So, you know, there's been obviously some meteoric growth, but it's been concentrated to just a few different entities or a few different individuals.
Yeah. All right. Again, perfectly stated, Mark. All right. I'm going to ask one more, then give Mark time, and then we're going to do promo. Does everybody have time for that? That's probably going to take us over an hour, but is everyone all right with that?
Sure.
We're good. All right. All right. So I'm gonna ask. This is something I ask every guest on here. This is something like the Joker says, I ask of all my prey. So we'll go just round the horn. What is your advice for things? You know, life is hard. Life is always hard. 2025 is maybe a little harder. What is your advice for staying in the game, staying positive and not giving in to despair? Again, Ray, you're on my screen, so I'm going to pick on you first.
Never dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Start with that.
Thank you for getting it.
To stay and you just gotta, and I think all of us go through these moments where we're on top of the world, we're in possession of our full confidence, and then we're on the flip side. I mean, every creative being is like peaks and valleys, and there are days that we feel like we're absolute dog shit. And luckily, again, having a spouse who is a writer, she kicks me in the ass whenever I get into that kind of rut. It's to maintain your level of energy. It can be a bitch because I mean sometimes if you're putting out what you think is quality stuff, it may not be, or it may be quality stuff, but you're just being beat out by people. I submitted one of my recent novels to a publisher, and I did so much networking with them, met them at a convention. It was going so well. And I joined their Patreon, and just it's everything that I could do to get to know them and get to know their authors and stuff. And I submitted, and I didn't get there. And they came back and they said, as much as low as I felt, because I sunk a lot of money into the editing of this thing, so it was the whole thing was bad timing. But they came back and told me, you had a 9 novel and you got beat out by a 10. Well, you know what? If you get something like that put in your face, take it and run with that. It's a compliment. Even if you got rejected, take the positive if someone's going to give it to you. Because most of the time, you're not going to get an answer as to what you did right or did wrong. You're just going to kind of get the canned response, or you're going to get the California no. So the whole thing is, you just gotta take any kind of positive, cling to it, push it into your next project, push it into your daily life. I try to keep a positive platform, especially on social media and my Substack. I tried not to let once in a while, I'm guilty of letting the doldrums out there. But when people see that, and then all of a sudden you're bringing them down with you, and all of a sudden they're not going to care about your cause as much. So you just kind of try to be as buoyant as you can for your own cause.
Love it. Thank you. All right. The ball's up there. Who wants Ryah? How about I'll pick on you. How about you
Okay. Well, building on what Ray said, 2 things. Like he said, he talks to his wife. Having someone you can talk to helps. It
Big
does,
time.
especially if you're on that downswing, having a social network of some kind, whether it's a friend, a spouse, any kind of partner, helps. And the other thing is, accept positive feedback. I know that you're always going to get really negative feedback, but I know when we work in the publishing industry and someone would send a manuscript to us and we'd say, this is good, except we want this changed. Change it, don't be so stuck in your way of, this is my magnum opus and I'm not changing a thing. Usually the editor, or if you're in music, your publisher or whatnot, saying, hey, this needs to be, it's because they have the experience and they know what people are looking for or what would help. They're not saying it to be mean. And you will go down and you will vent to your partner and say, do you know what they said I should do? And again, but, and also don't always look for the big, don't go to DAW or Penguin or Random House. If you feel you have to publish yourself, or if you're fine with a smaller publisher, be willing to start small and work your way up.
All right. Yeah. All right, Bert, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to jump in with. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ryah and Ray.
Yeah. Same thing. I think I tend to be a very positive outlook person, not in a Pollyanna type of way, but just you hope for the best and see what happens. I tend to think that way anyway. But I think it's also important, a couple of things. One, whatever that looks like, to be able to go touch grass, whether that means getting out to nature, meditating, putting on the headphones and cranking up Voivod for a couple hours, whatever that looks like, to do something for you. And it's easy when you look around to see all the wrong things going on, not just in your life, but in the world, in the neighborhood, your job, or whatever. And sometimes it's important to stop and look at those things that are going right. It's easy to focus on the negative. Try not to, because those are, it's kind of the old saying, the Buddha saying, if you can control it, don't worry. If you can't control it, don't worry. Because they're both the same thing. And the other thing, when you're talking about personal development and all that, a lot of my work with writing and editing coincided with several decades of training with martial arts. And through that, there's always constant improvement, no matter how good you are. I had one time I was working on some punches in front of a seminar. I had a grandmaster saying, "What's he doing wrong? What's he doing wrong?" I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing wrong." He's like, "Okay, your hand's turning over 1/16 of a second too soon." And you're like, okay. But through that, or your foot's turned just a little bit wrong or whatever, the thing is, there's always something you can do better. And I think that's helped me with writing and anything professional, that I look at it and automatically think, okay, this is a step. There's always something beyond that. There's always some way to make that improved. And then I try to carry that to the people that I work with too, like in editing, doing anthologies. Somebody submits something. If it's a really good story, it's like, hey, it's great, but you wrote a song about Don't Fear the Reaper or whatever, and somebody else did one just like it, and theirs is just a little bit better. If it was not a great story, then I would say, hey, there's some things that probably need to be worked on. I'm happy to work with you on that for no cost. And that way I'm trying to reach out to them and say, hey, this is a good story. Let's make it better. Let's teach you some things, and kind of carry that forward too. So, like I said, it's positive outlook, always trying to find something to do, but also keep grounded.
Man, I love it. Love these answers. All right, Mark, why don't you, like I said, I want to do around the horn of promotions, but Mark, why don't you take us out?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment because I think
But yeah,
that there's a couple of things here. Be coachable. And that's just life, right? But I think that there's limitations to that. My favorite author, Terry Pratchett, has a great quote, and he says, "Nothing is worth doing unless someone somewhere, or rather, you're not doing it." And I think that's the other side of it, right? People give you feedback, and you have to decide whether that's meaningful or whether you just kind of nod your head and do whatever the fuck it is that you were going to do anyways. And I think that that's a part of the process. So, you know, and if I can, I do have one last question, Jack, if that was you tossing it to me for my closing question.
yeah. But no, I appreciate the comment too. Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, please.
To that end, I think all of us here share a lot of the same influences. And I think that that's great, because I think we could probably name 20 things and all of us would be kind of nodding our head going, hell yeah, that's great. What's an influence in your life that is counter to that? What's an influence that we would never expect in your life? Ray?
Wow. Malcolm X. A lot of people has completely misunderstood what he was about. There was something back in the 80s. Our teachers had very shallow look at the civil rights movement. They gave Martin Luther King a nice gloss, but everybody else, they made them look out to be firebrands and revolutionaries, terrorists, and stuff. And I didn't buy into it for a minute. And I don't really spend a ton of time, but I did research on Malcolm X and the entire civil rights movement. And I thought, man, we have really been sold a sham growing up in our generation. The man actually, yes, he was a criminal in the beginning, but when he was in prison, he took the time to develop his mind, study, and he became a very literate and a very spiritual and talkative person, to the point that he was exploited by the Nation of Islam. What really inspired me about him was that he went over to have his pilgrimage and his Hajj, and he learned that we're all equal, we're all brothers and sisters, and he came back with that different kind of enlightenment, and he separated from the Nation of Islam, and unfortunately he was taken out for that. I'm going to stop with that, but that entire experience, and Malcolm X is definitely a total personal hero to me, because there's just so much more to his dynamic than, and I'm afraid to say he's probably going to get wiped out even more with the way the culture is right now. But that's what I would say is just what his own sense of self enlightenment and teaching himself that taught me.
Interesting take. Bert?
Yeah, great answer. Yeah.
Let's go with something totally different, and that is cooking. I love watching cooking shows. I love cooking. It's part of that same thing I was talking about earlier with the constant process. No matter how good you get at a recipe or baking or whatever, you can always get better. And so I love cooking. My wife hates it. She hates it. She doesn't hate cooking, but she hates that I cook for her. I'm kidding. I joke because I'll fix dinner. How was it? Well, I didn't have to cook it. But she's a great cook. She is, but I enjoy cooking. She lets me. But anyway, I've always enjoyed that as a way to explore different things and different cultures. And, I obsess and find old, spiral bound cookbooks put out by churches, 40 years ago. Some of those are the best recipes in the world because, somebody's grandma's made that for 50 years, and I may not be able to duplicate it, but it's still fun having that. But again, it's that constant process. But, even tying it back to things like I learned recently that, Michael Anthony, formerly of Van Halen, has a hot sauce line. Excellent. I love hot sauces. I've got too many bottles. So I may or may not have ordered some of his, but yeah, cooking is one of those things that's totally different from everything else I do. During the day, I'm a software developer, writing, editing, all that. Cooking is one of those things.
I'm totally with you on that. Cooking is one of my big decompression moments.
Oh, absolutely.
And the longer it takes, the better, because I'm separated away from everything else, and it makes me happy. Anybody who's eating my cooking, especially my family, if they're enjoying it, that's my nirvana right there.
Yep, yeah. Fixing food for other people is absolutely my love language.
Absolutely.
Right.
Mine's harder. I mean, I used to cook all the time, and I used to really like to bake as my decompress. But nowadays, there's two things that influence me. One, I like the worst, you would pick on them as much as you can, be horror movies. Like the ones that nobody else likes, that you would expect to be terrible. Every once in a while you watch them and you'll find a gem in them, but I like to watch them. And Jack knows, because I used to do the reviews as they were happening on the site.
Play-by-plays, yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is, and this is going to sound weird because how everyone says family, I grew up in a not a very good family group. So my family influences me in the reverse direction. I'm everything they're not. I mean, and Jack's heard a few tales of my mother and whatnot. But yeah, so I know everyone says my family influences me. My mother and whatnot influence me, but in the opposite direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does.
Jack, why don't you answer this question? We want to know what influences you, Jack.
I love this question, Mark. I hate it when you're better at this than I am. No, I'm kidding. No, Mark is an awesome fucking interviewer, by the way. By the way, check out his interviews on New Wave of Traditional Heavy Metal, their YouTube page. Yeah, I really love this question. And my answer, the first thing that came to mind, I have a lot of things that come to mind. The first thing that came to mind is actually the movie It's a Wonderful Life. It's basically one of the most close to perfect movies ever made. And I mean, it's so relevant today and just throughout everything. George Bailey, the things he goes through, the way he perseveres, the way he almost doesn't persevere. It's just a beautiful movie. And I probably think about it multiple times a week. I wouldn't say daily, but I probably think about it multiple times a week. It's just one of those pieces. So the question was for unexpected influences. I'd say that movie in particular. I could broaden it and say old movies for sure, but that one in particular. So that was the thing I thought of. Yeah, I love the question, Mark. It was definitely. I said it again. Gosh, I love the question, comma Mark. I loved it.
For me, it's Lee Morgan. Lee Morgan, the jazz artist who recorded for Blue Note, who was killed. He was murdered at 33. And if you think of that time in jazz, yes, in college I had my jazz period. It's just like everybody else probably did. But these were people that were making music that was unprecedented. It was infinitely creative, but it was so intricately technical, and it was. I think Bert was talking about this. Your fist turned just a 16th of a second too soon. These guys were masters of improvisation, and I think I take his music, and I think I take sort of the sum total of a lot of what came out of the Blue Note period of jazz is do it now, be creative and do it now, and live the consequences, or live the experience, because you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow. And whatever the feedback is, or whatever mistakes you make, just be with it in the moment, because as Viktor Frankl says, to sort of toss up and cross up a bunch of influences, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your reaction to it. And sometimes happy accidents birth a lot of great ideas.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, that's a subject I can geek out on too. I love that period of jazz. Just the classic. A lot of people call it the bebop era too. I just
Correct.
love.
Flaky.
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
Yep.
yeah. I think all right, everyone buckle up. We're gonna talk for another hour about this. No. All right. Again, awesome question, Mar. Is a perfect, I think, way to take us to the door. So let me say thank you very much to our esteemed guests. It's been a really great conversation. It's a little different for Slam, but I think there's definitely a lot of crossover. I think any musician who's hung with us for the hour plus definitely, I think, has a lot of takeaways here. So I mean, we'll start actually, Mark, with you. You're with me at Slam, but I want to go around the horn. Like, what do you have? Promote what you have coming up for late 2025, early 2026. What do you have going on?
So, Whiskey Network, we are a monthly digital publication. We are focused on the lifestyle of whiskey. So we do have people from the whiskey industry, but I also interview people from the world of music. We've had authors, we've had athletes, all kinds of different folks in. We have cigars, we have cocktails, if you like that kind of coverage. So, the old sort of stodgy, I'm going to drink my whiskey in a darkened bar with cigarette smoke and slow jazz playing. Those spots are taken from a standpoint of journalism. So we're a little more rock and roll and a little more metal from that perspective, and a little edgier, if you will. And then I just competed with Jack, and I hate it that Doro liked him better than she did me. But we both interviewed Doro. I interviewed her first, and he was the 30-minute slot after me. And we only sort of figured this out, like comparing notes, like, oh shit, you're the next time slot after me. But I did have a video interview. It's the New Wave of Traditional Heavy Metal, or the NWOTHM.com. I do reviews and I do interviews for the site. Please check it out.
Great. Raya, how about we go with you? You have your book. You have a book out, and then another one coming up, right?
Blood Ties is out right now. It came out in March, and then Sun and Moon is coming out end of November. I don't know, sci-fi romance. What would you call it?
Yeah, I thought the Blood Ties was such a creative setting, such great
Yeah.
characters. Well, so the one
And
character
Sun and
I
Moon's
didn't
in the
like,
same world. I know you didn't like the male character in Blood Ties. And
but no,
Sun
it's
and
a good
Moon's in the
character.
same world, but it's standalone with whole different characters. It comes out the end of November, but I can be found on Insta at RD Rivers Writer. 90% of the time you get pictures of the cat, but I also have been promoting this one.
Yeah. All right, excellent. No, and let me clarify. When I say I didn't like the character, I mean he's very well written. I just thought he was a dick. But no, he's a very
No,
well
he
written
was.
character. Yeah, no, I look forward to the Sun and the Moon for sure. All right, we'll toss it to Bert. I know you have a project coming up that's near and dear to my heart, but
Yeah.
more than that.
Well, first shout out to the cats, because I was the head corgi speaking up during ours. Let's see, things out already. I've got a collection of short fiction called Dead Orphans, and I have an anthology of stories inspired by the music of Alice Cooper, called Dismember the Coop. Anything above the cost of printing those books goes to the charity that Alice and Cheryl Cooper run in the Phoenix area, benefiting teens in the area. And then, just because random things, I have a horror word search book out too. My branding is shotgunhorror.com, and I've come up with that because I'm all over everywhere. It can be extreme, it can be soft, it could be splatterpunk, it can be a horror word search. You never know. Coming up project, I've got stories accepted and all the formatting, working on getting the forward done. by a special guest for an anthology of stories inspired by the music of Blue Oyster Cult. And hopefully that will be out early 2026.
Excellent. All right, take us home.
All right. So first off, congratulations to you, brother. So I'm glad that you have your own book coming out. So that's awesome, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doro, of course, I have to say she is just the crown jewel of our scene. She's the classiest lady. I interviewed her 3 times. Total sweetheart. One of the best moments of my life was being on her tour bus and talking with her and Chris Caffery together. It was just a wonderful time. So I loved listening to your story. That was cool. Mark, I saw your blackened bottle in the background. It's the best bourbon I've ever had, especially the Wes Henderson cut.
Oh,
That is sublime. I'm a bourbon guy, so I just looked at it and said, oh, there it is. So, all right, now I'll get on and shamelessly promote real quick. This week, there's a new anthology called Dread Mondays, and I have a short story in there called Bentaloo Crush. So it's kind of like taking my time as a mortgage title real estate examiner and taking all the horror stories out of that, because this anthology is about horrors in the workplace. And I kind of pretty much just rained American Psycho and Hostel on the story there. So that comes out this week from Whisper House. And that's coming out this week. I got 2 stories that were accepted last week. But what I'm promoting right now, I have 2 collections of horror and little horror short stories. Behind the Shadows, that has 10 stories. And then Bringing in the Creeps, that has 11 stories. I'm a big fan of horror anthologies, be it in movies or TV or books. I love the horror short form. And those are both. This one is available from Anucci Press, and this one is available from Raw Earth Inc. I could just bore you to tears talking about the stories, but reach out to me at any of the socials. I'm there, and I have a Substack, Ray Van Horn Jr., and I've also got a blog, roadslessertraveled.com.
All right. Excellent. Well, I appreciate everyone's time. I really do. You know, I know we've kept everyone on, you out there watching too, and we've kept everyone on for a long time, but I really appreciate everyone taking the time. And thanks, Mark, for jumping in last minute with no notice. Thanks to everyone. This has really been a lot of fun. We'll do this kind of thing again. You guys are all welcome back anytime. And best of luck. I'm cheering for all of you. You're all super talented at what you do. I'm fans all the way around the horn here. So no pun intended with Ray Van Horn Jr. But thank you all for coming on. It's been a blast.
Appreciate you, Jack.
Yeah,
Thank
appreciate you all.
I wanted to show Ray that
Yeah, it's the one.
reasonably indistinguishable from magic that I make it materialize out of thin air, but this is absolutely the best of the bunch when it comes to
100%.
What is
That
what
is
is
the-
that
that is
one?
the
I'm a
greatest
huge
bourbon I've ever
whiskey
had.
drinker myself. So what is the name of that one?
This is
Blackened?
blackened whiskey. It's made by Metallica,
Yep.
but this was a collaboration that they did with Wes Henderson, who was a distiller. Good
My
luck.
best man
Good
gave
luck
me that
finding
for our wedding present, and I didn't realize it was going to be so high in value. I opened mine and I went through it because it really was the best bourbon I ever had.
We could do a whole other episode on whiskey, and I could just pull up bottles and we could just talk all day. But I'll contact both of you or all of you offline, and we'll go from there. I'll pull you into the web.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Yes,
Yeah, I've
I was gonna
been
say,
big
if
into
only-
Japanese whiskeys lately. So
Oh, absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, if only there was a magazine or something dedicated to this topic, it would be.
Whiskeynetwork.net.
All right, perfect way to take us out. So with Metallica even. Yeah, very nice touch.
Yes.
All right, check out all of these authors' books and thank you all for coming on. I'm gonna hit pause and
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, man.